Imagine sitting in a crowded, upscale restaurant, where polished silverware clinks gently against fine china, and every guest is dressed in their best. Among them sits a woman who looks plain, almost invisible, her hair tied back, her clothes simple, her shoes worn. To anyone watching, she's just another struggling customer stretching her budget for a rare night out, but what no one knows is that she's a millionaire in disguise. She's not here for the food, or the company. She's here for answers, because tonight, as she orders a simple steak, something unexpected happens. The waiter, a young black man, balancing plates with practiced grace, approaches her table. He doesn't just bring her meal. He leans closer, places the dish gently before her, and slips her a folded note, and when she opens it, her entire world shifts. A message so personal, so piercing, it leaves her utterly speechless, and sets in motion a chain of events that no one in the restaurant, not even she, could have ever predicted. This is the story of secrets, silent struggles, and a single message that exposed truths hidden beneath layers of wealth and service. Chapter 1. The woman no one saw. The restaurant was the kind of place where appearances mattered. Gold-trimmed menus, velvet chairs, and a wine list longer than the Bible. Guests weren't just eating here, they were performing. Every laugh was measured, every glance rehearsed, every bite taken with elegance. And in the middle of this stage sat a woman who didn't belong. Her hair was unstyled, her dress plain cotton, her handbag fraying at the edges. The other guests barely noticed her, except for the occasional disapproving glance. To them, she was a reminder of the outside world, the one that didn't fit their curated perfection. But if they had looked closer, really looked, they might have seen the truth hidden in her eyes. The way she studied the room, not with envy, but with quiet authority. The way she carried herself, calm, steady, as if none of this luxury could truly impress her, because in reality, she wasn't struggling at all. She was testing. This woman, let's call her Evelyn, had built an empire from the ground up. Investments, properties, partnerships. On paper, she was worth more than half the people dining here combined. But she had grown tired of seeing only polished faces and empty gestures. Tonight, she wanted to be anonymous, to see how people treated her when they thought she had nothing. So she chose this restaurant, not because of the food, but because of the staff. She had heard whispers that among the waiters and kitchen workers, there were stories of resilience, of quiet battles fought away from the chandelier light. Evelyn wanted to see them. For herself, her order was simple: steak, medium rare, with water, no wine, no truffle garnish, no performance, just food. And it was when she placed that modest order that she caught the faintest flicker in the waiter's expression. He was young, early 20s, moving with the precision of someone who had worked twice as hard to be here. His uniform was pressed, his steps silent, his smile professional, but behind his eyes, there was something else. Not pity, not judgment. Recognition, as if he knew something she didn't. When he returned with her plate, he didn't just serve her food, he served her fate. With practiced calm, he placed the steak before her, leaned slightly forward, and left a folded slip of paper beside the knife. To anyone else, it looked like a receipt. But Evelyn knew better. The moment her fingers touched the note, the air around her seemed to shift. What kind of message could a stranger possibly have for her? And why did it feel like it was meant for her long before this night began? As she unfolded the paper, her heart quickened, though she didn't yet understand why. Because the words she was about to read would unravel secrets she thought were buried forever. And in that moment, her disguise, her wealth, and her carefully guarded walls wouldn't matter anymore. Evelyn's hand trembled as she unfolded the slip of paper. She expected a polite thank you, maybe even a complaint. But instead, the words scrawled in hurried handwriting pulled her deeper than she could have imagined. I know who you are, and I know what you did. Her stomach tightened. For a woman who had spent years guarding her privacy, this was a dagger. The restaurant's noise, the clinking glasses, the quiet laughter, the hum of a piano, all of it faded. She sat frozen, her fork untouched, her mind racing. How could he know? She was dressed plainly, her fortune well hidden. To everyone else here, she was invisible. But this young waiter had pierced straight through her disguise. Evelyn's mind returned to memories she rarely allowed herself to visit. Her rise to wealth hadn't been spotless. There were deals made in shadows, partnerships broken, opportunities seized at others' expense. To the world, she was a self-made woman. To herself, she was something far more complicated. And now, this message. She looked up, her eyes scanning the room for the waiter. He moved gracefully between tables, refilling wine, offering menus, smiling politely. To anyone else, he was just doing his job. But Evelyn knew better. He was watching her, testing her. She slipped the note under her plate, hiding it from curious eyes. But her mind churned. Why tonight? Why him? What did he want? When her steak arrived, she cut into it mechanically, but each bite tasted like ash. The room felt hotter, the chandelier lights too bright. The faces of wealthy diners blurred together, their laughter hollow and cruel. And then she realized something chilling. If this waiter truly knew who she was, then maybe, just maybe, he also knew something no one else in this room could ever imagine. Something about her past that she had spent years burying, under layers of money and success. She wanted to leave, but something stronger rooted her to that velvet chair. A pull she couldn't explain. Because even though the note felt like a threat, there was also a strange familiarity to it. As if whoever wrote it wasn't a stranger at all. And that thought terrified her more than anything else. The meal stretched on. Evelyn kept her composure, her mask never slipping, but inside she was unraveling. She wasn't just waiting for dessert, she was waiting for answers. When the waiter returned once more, his eyes briefly locked with hers, steady, unflinching, knowing. For a moment, it felt like the whole room had disappeared, and it was just the two of them. She didn't speak. He didn't need her to, because she understood, now, that this wasn't about food. It wasn't even about her disguise, it was about something far deeper, and she had no choice but to follow where it led. Chapter 3, A Name from the Past. Finishing her meal in silence, Evelyn pushed her chair back. Her decision made, she would not leave without answers. With quiet determination, she stood and followed the subtle trail of polished footsteps toward the back of the restaurant. The kitchen door swung open, releasing a burst of heat and the smell of spices. Inside, chaos reigned, pots clanging, chefs barking orders, steam rising in clouds, and yet, within that storm, the waiter moved with calm precision. Until he noticed her, he stopped mid-step, tray balanced on one hand, his gaze locking onto hers. It wasn't surprise she saw their Ippus recognition. Evelyn's throat tightened. There was something about his eyes, a depth, a familiarity she couldn't place at first. But then, like a long-closed door creaking open, her memory betrayed her. Years ago, before the wealth, before the empire, Evelyn had lived a very different life. In a neighborhood where cracked sidewalks and flickering street lamps were the norm. She remembered a boy there, younger, bright, with ambition burning in his veins. His mother worked double shifts, his father gone too soon. He had dreams of college, of breaking free from the cycle of poverty, and she remembered something else. The day she walked away, a business decision, one that had secured her first major deal, had left that family ruined. A deal, she told herself, was necessary, justified, part of the climb. But in truth, it had broken them. Her breath caught in her chest. Could it be? The waiter's eyes seemed to confirm it, and as he moved closer, slipping another folded piece of paper into her palm without a word, she knew the truth before she even unfolded it. This wasn't just some coincidence, this was fate, circling back. She stepped out of the kitchen, retreating, into the shadows of the hallway, and with shaking hands, opened the second note. It was short, brutal, and undeniable. You don't remember me, but I remember everything. The floor beneath her seemed to tilt. Suddenly, she wasn't the invisible woman in plain clothes. She wasn't the millionaire in disguise. She was Evelyn, the girl who had clawed her way up the ladder, leaving broken rungs behind. And one of those broken rungs was standing before her now, holding the weight of her past in his hands. She folded the paper slowly, her pulse hammering in her ears. She had come here to test the world, to see how it treated those without wealth. Instead, the world had tested her, and the answers were only just beginning to unfold. Evelyn sat in the dimly lit hallway outside the kitchen, her fingers still pressed against the folded note. The restaurant's sounds faded into the background. The laughter, the clinking silverware, the muted conversations, none of it mattered. Now, the words burned in her hand. You don't remember me, but I remember everything. For the first time in years, Evelyn felt small. Not the powerful entrepreneur who could silence critics with a single signature. Not the untouchable figure hidden behind tinted windows and guarded estates. No, she was simply Evelyn, a woman being dragged back into a past she had spent a lifetime burying. Her mind raced through names, faces, deals, betrayals. How many people had she stepped over to reach the heights she now occupied? Hundreds, thousands. But this was different. This wasn't a faceless casualty of business. This was someone who had been close. Too close, and she knew she had to face it. When the waiter emerged again, no tray in hand, his eyes sought her immediately. He didn't smile, he didn't need to. Without a word, he tilted his head, signaling her to follow. Against every instinct telling her to flee, Evelyn rose. Her heels clicked softly against the polished floor as she trailed him deeper into the restaurant's service. Corridors away from the chandeliers, away from the safety of the crowd. They stopped in a narrow hallway lined with crates and wine barrels, the hum of refrigeration units buzzing faintly. The waiter turned then, finally allowing her a full look at his face, and in that moment, Evelyn's breath caught. Recognition struck like lightning. The boy from her neighborhood, older now, hardened by years, but unmistakably him. The same sharp eyes, though no longer filled with dreams, now with fire. The same jawline, once youthful, now cut with determination. He didn't waste time. You don't remember me, do you? His voice was low, steady, but laced with bitterness. Evelyn hesitated. For a woman used to controlling every conversation, words suddenly felt foreign. He cut her off. My mother worked 2 jobs. She believed in me. Believed I'd go further than she ever could. And I was ready to. Until the day your deal took everything from us. Her chest tightened. She remembered. God help her. She remembered it had been her first big break, a property deal that had saved her fledgling company and propelled her upward. But in securing it, she had sided with developers who pushed out the very families who lived there. His family. Told myself it was just business, Evelyn whispered, more to herself than to him. He stepped closer, his words sharp as glass. It was our lives. Do you know what it's like to watch your mother lose the only home she ever worked for? To see her health crumble under the stress? To see everything ripped away because someone like you needed a stepping stone? The weight of his words crushed her. For all her wealth, all her influence, Evelyn had never confronted the human faces behind her decisions. Tonight, she couldn't look away. I came here, he continued, his voice trembling with both rage and restraint, because I wanted to see you. To see if you even remembered what you'd done. Or if I was just another forgotten casualty. In your climb, Evelyn's throat was dry, her heart pounding. This wasn't just a chance encounter. It was a reckoning. I remember, she admitted, her voice breaking. I've tried to forget, but I remember. For a long moment, silence hung heavy between them. The young man studied her, his chest rising and falling with unspoken fury. And yet, beneath it all, there was something else. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something more complicated. Because seeing Evelyn broken and human before him was not what he had expected, and for the first time that night, Evelyn understood. This wasn't about punishment. Not entirely. This was about recognition, about being seen, about his pain finally having a witness. The past and the present had collided in this narrow hallway, and both of them stood at the fault line, unsure if the ground would hold or give way completely. The silence between them stretched, thick and unbearable. Evelyn stood frozen in the narrow hallway, her hands trembling as if the notes still burned against her skin. Across from her, the young waiter, the boy she once knew, now a man hardened by struggle, held his ground. For years, Evelyn had imagined that her past missteps had been swept away by time and success. But here, in this dim corridor, the truth stood in front of her in human form. There was no ledger to balance, no contract to renegotiate, no publicist to spin her image. There was only raw consequence. Her instinct, as always, was to fight, to explain, to rationalize. But when she opened her mouth, no excuses came. Instead, something else rose to the surface. I was wrong, Evelyn whispered, the words foreign, heavy, and painful. I told myself I was building something, that the sacrifices were worth it, but they weren't mine to make. The young man's eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering. For years, he had dreamed of this confrontation. He imagined anger, defiance, maybe even satisfaction. What he hadn't imagined was sincerity. He stepped closer, his voice low. Do you know what your choices cost me? My mother's health. Our dignity. I spent years watching her shrink under the weight of loss. I worked jobs I hated just to keep us afloat. All while you rose higher and higher, untouched. Evelyn's chest tightened. She wanted to reach for him, to offer something, but what could she give that would measure against a lifetime of pain, money, apologies? Neither felt enough. I can't change what I did, she admitted, but I can see it now. One can carry it not as a forgotten detail, but as the truth. And if there's a way I can make amends, I will. For a long moment, he just stared at her. His jaw clenched, his eyes wet with a storm of emotions. Forgiveness wasn't there, not yet, but something cracked in the wall between them, because Evelyn, the woman who had built an empire on control and power, was finally powerless. And in her vulnerability, she gave him something she never could before, acknowledgement. The young man drew a slow breath, his shoulders lowering just slightly. I didn't come here for your money. I didn't even come here for revenge. I came here because I needed you to remember, to face what you did, to know that I existed. And Evelyn understood. It wasn't about her redemption, it was about his recognition, about his pain finally having a witness, no longer invisible in the shadow of her empire. For the first time in decades, she felt something break inside her, a dam giving way. Tears welled in her eyes, silent and unbidden. Not the tears of a millionaire shielding her secrets, but the tears of a woman who had been blind to long in that dim hallway. 2 lives scarred by the same past finally collided. One had been forged by loss, the other by denial. And though forgiveness did not come, something else did. Release. The waiter straightened, his expression still hardened but less sharp. He turned as if to leave, pausing only once to glance back. His words were quiet, but they carried the weight of years. Don't forget me again. And then he was gone, vanishing back into the hum of the restaurant. Evelyn remained in the silence, her heart pounding, her mind racing, the note still crumpled in her hand, the words etched into her very soul. For the first time in her life, she didn't think about profits, or status, or appearances. She thought about legacy, about the cost of ambition, about the faces behind the fortunes she had built. When she finally returned to her table, The untouched steak sat cold. The ballroom glittered as if nothing had happened. Guests laughed. Music swelled. Glasses clinked, but Evelyn felt none of it, because she knew the truth now. Beneath the silks and chandeliers, beneath the disguise of wealth and power, she was no different from anyone else, human, fallible, and responsible. That night, Evelyn left the restaurant not as the untouchable millionaire she had pretended to be, but as a woman who had been confronted, broken open, and forced to reckon with her past. And though the world outside remained unchanged, something within her was different. For the first time in decades, Evelyn felt the weight of her choices, and the fragile hope that, perhaps, carrying it honestly, might be the first step toward something resembling redemption.